what did they stand for? They were for a strong central government, a loose interpretation of the Constitution. They wanted to have good relations with Britain. They wanted a complex economy, meaning some agriculture, but also they wanted industry, a lot of trade. They thought government should be led by the elite people, people with money, with property. Okay? Their leaders were John Adams, Alexander Hamilton. The Federalists, weak central government, strict interpretation of the Constitution, more or less for an agrarian economy, pretty dependent upon agriculture, not a lot of industry or anything like that. They tended to support relations with France because they helped us win the revolution. Okay? The leader of the Federalists, or the Republicans, Thomas Jefferson. Any questions on that? Democratic Republicans had been prior the Anti-Federalists. They were the party who was opposed to Hamilton's view of a big government. Called themselves Republicans because they saw the word democracy as hinting at mob rule, chaos, that kind of thing. Why did Jefferson oppose Hamilton? He didn't want a strong central government. He thought that that would abuse the rights of people. He didn't want a national bank because he thought that would encourage the government to protect the wealthy's interests over the common man's interests. Jefferson's ideal was an agrarian society. Remember, the word agrarian means agriculture. Social classes in early U.S., the top were the wealthy, so you own plantations in the South, you own big businesses or educated industry in the North. They still had a strong middle class. People who lived mostly in cities were middle class. Who owned smaller businesses were doctors, lawyers, that kind of thing, preachers. There were still poor people and there were still slaves. First actions of the government, meaning Congress and the President, this would be 1789 to 1796, so under Washington's term. Regarding the courts, the first thing is the 1789 Judiciary Act, which set up the federal court system. Okay, the Constitution only provides that there will be a Supreme Court and they'll serve for life. It doesn't state how many justices there will be. It doesn't set up federal district court or court of appeals or anything like that. That's all done by the Judiciary Act of 1789. Okay? The next part, national and state debt. So, when the new government is formed, southern states have primarily paid off their debt from the war. They didn't have as much debt and they paid it off. The New England states are in the worst shape. They haven't paid theirs off. They've had like shade rebellion because they're trying to impose too many taxes to pay it off, etc. So they want the national government to assume their debt. Hamilton wants the national government to assume state debt also because he thinks it's making the government too unshaky if people are owed money. Okay? So do Congress and the President support the assumption of state debt? Yes. And the national government takes over state debts. To make the South happy, what's their reward? The capital is put in Washington, D.C., which is really in the South rather than midway or in the North. Okay? So that's the reward to Virginia and South Carolina because they have no debt and they go along with this other debt repayment that they get the capital in their neck of the woods. National debt focuses on certificates of indebtedness. Most of the national debt is owed to individuals. So we took your pig, you still have the certificate of indebtedness that says that we owe you $20 for your pig. You've never been paid. Jefferson says as long as you are the original holder of that certificate of indebtedness, that you should be paid. Hamilton says whoever holds it should be paid. So Jarrett for years held this $20 certificate of indebtedness. And then comes Ben, who's a shyster, who knows that the government's going to assume the national debt. So he says to Jarrett, listen, buddy, I know you really need money. I'll give you 20 cents on the dollar. And Jarrett thinks, 20 cents on the dollar is a lot better than what I've been getting, which is the big zero. So he sells the certificate to Ben. Jefferson would say, now Ben's out of luck. Hamilton would say, Ben gets paid. So who got paid? Ben did get paid. Hamilton won that argument, okay? So we assume not only state debts, but all national debts, regardless of who held the certificate. The third thing says the government's economic plan, okay? That's Hamilton's plan. So did they institute a national bank? Yes. Did they put in taxes? Yes, both protective tariffs and excise taxes, both, okay? Any questions on any of that? Washington's neutrality policy. So France and Britain go to war. Hamilton wants to support Britain because they're our #1 trading partner. Jefferson wants to support France because France helped us in the revolution, and he maintains we signed the Franco-American alliance with them, which says that we'll help defend them like they defended us. Hamilton says we don't owe anything to France because different ruler. We made the Franco-American alliance with the king. The king is long dead because he had his head chopped off by the guillotine, so we should not bother with France. Ultimately, Washington issues a neutrality proclamation which says we're going to remain neutral. We expect the French and the British to go along with that. They don't, however. They both stop our ships, they both seize cargoes, and furthermore, the British also do what? Impressment, okay, or they impress sailors into their navy. Jay's Treaty did what? It reassured the British that things were going to be kept status quo, meaning that we were not going to go to war with them. It didn't deal with the issue of impressment. It didn't deal with their presence in the Ohio River Valley. It was kind of like, well, we're just remain friends treaty. It was very unpopular in the country at the time, but what it really does is it keeps us out of war, which in 1790 we probably would have lost. We almost lost in 1812, so. Hamilton and Jay's Treaty. Hamilton was in favor of Jay's Treaty. He gave speeches around the country on why the Senate should ratify the treaty. At one speech in New York City, he was talking, and people were so mad about the treaty that they started throwing rocks at him. But nonetheless, the Senate did ratify the treaty. Pinckney's treaty, on the other hand, is a very favorite treaty because it gives the Americans the right to do what? What? Right. To deposit goods in New Orleans and use the Mississippi River. Okay, it was a treaty made with Spain. Western farmers needed a way from Ohio and Illinois to get their goods over to the East Coast or someplace where they could actually sell them, so they wanted to be able to use the Mississippi River, and that's what this treaty allows them to do. America's early diplomatic policies, who favored which European country? Pretty much everybody but Jefferson favored England. Washington wanted to remain neutral, and Jefferson favored France. Why did the British keep the forts in the Northwest? 2 reasons. One is we hadn't paid the Loyalists back. And secondly, so that they could control fur trade in the Ohio River Valley. It was an economic thing for them. It made a lot of money for them.